Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has welcomed the European Union's Special Representative for Venezuela. Cuba's National Assembly is meeting to debate measures to confront the tightening of the U.S. blockade. Nearly 5,000 Rohingya refugees are left homeless after landslides hit refugee camps in Bangladesh. Hello and welcome to Telesur English. I am Estefania Bravo. This is from the South. A delegation representing Venezuela's government has arrived in Barbados in order to continue to hold peace talks with the opposition, assisted by the government of Norway. The talks began on May 14th in Oslo. In an official communique, the government says that it has waited with strategic patience in the interest of defending a peaceful path towards resolving conflict as the different factions of the opposition work to resolve or mitigate the deep divergencies within their ranks.
A delegation from the Bolivarian Revolution is in Barbados. President Nicolás Maduro has designated for that purpose, as you know, the Communication Minister Jorge Rodriguez, Governor of Miranda Héctor Rodriguez, and Foreign Affairs Minister Jorge Arreaza, as they have conversing with the different sectors.
Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has met with the European Union's Special Representative for Venezuela. Enrique Iglesias, who is the former Foreign Minister of Uruguay, is in Venezuela as part of a dialogue process for peace building and national understanding. The diplomat arrived in Caracas early on Monday at the invitation of President Nicolás Maduro, who extended a welcome through the International Contact Group. And on behalf of the government, Vice President Rodriguez also received humanitarian leader and peace ambassador Ravi Shankar. The Hindu religious leader, on a visit from India, arrived with the aim of supporting the consolidation of peace and strengthening dialogue in Venezuela. An appeals court in Italy has condemned 24 former political and military leaders from South America to life imprisonment. This verdict is an expansion of a judgment made in 2017 when the Italian justice system gave life sentences to 8 of those accused of the disappearance of Italian citizens in the 1970s and 80s as part of Operation Condor. Now, 16 of those absolved in that verdict have also been given life. Operation Condor was a coordinated plan by several military dictatorships to eliminate political activists and opponents. Bolivian President Evo Morales praised the decision by Italy's courts, saying, "We welcome this historic ruling against the perpetrators of crimes against humanity in Bolivia, Chile, Peru, and Uruguay through Operation Condor, which was carried out by the CIA. We will defeat impunity with the truth." From Montevideo in Uruguay, Telesur's Mateo Grille has more.
So, we now have the final verdict in the Operation Condor case that has been unfolding in Rome, and which has given life sentences to a series of military and civilian leaders of the military dictatorships in the southern cone, especially from Chile, Bolivia, Peru, and Uruguay. 14 of those condemned are Uruguayan. One of them, Jorge Trocoli, has been living in freedom in Italy since 2007, when he fled justice in Uruguay. He has joined Italian nationality, and now he has been sentenced to life imprisonment. The case was held in Italy because it began as an investigation into who was responsible for the disappearance of 42 Latin American citizens of Italian descent. So this is an important decision by the court. In addition to those life sentences, the guilty are ordered to pay the legal costs, which could amount to millions for some of them. At the headquarters of the main trade union confederation here, the PIT-CNT, human rights organizations are holding a video conference with some of those involved in the case in Rome to learn more details of this judgment against some of those responsible for Operation Condor.
We thank Mateo for that report. After 20 years of negotiations, the European Union and the South American Economic Bloc, MERCOSUR, recently sealed a huge huge trade deal. The agreement, which impacts a combined population of more than 780 million people, aims to remove the majority of tariffs on EU exports to the bloc, comprising Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, plus several associate members. While many have deemed the agreement a golden opportunity, some opposing voices have warned all that glitters is not gold. And to evaluate the pros and cons of the deal, we're joined live by economist Martín Carlos. He's a professor at the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for this opportunity to talk with you.
What would you say is the biggest benefit and, on the other hand, the biggest challenge of this commercial agreement?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that, as usual, more trade is beneficial for most parties. The thing with this agreement is not that it's just more trade, it's more free trade. And there lies the difficulties. I mean, you can always have more exports and more imports that benefit every part involved in this agreement. And still you have to see what the details are to understand exactly where this will hit. And there are many sectors that are worried because we still don't know a lot of details about how these tariffs will lower, in how many years, how much for each individual sector and merchandise. So that's the main thing. When we know that, when we really know every detail involved in this agreement, we will be able to say, well, which sectors will benefit and which sectors might even die, or which firms might perish because of stiffer competition and no policies that might make them, more productive in their home countries.
Martín, would you say this trade pact is well balanced? In other words, does the EU stand to gain more?
Probably, because as far as we know right now, we are just looking forward to more of the same thing that we already have. As far as we know, there are no provisions that can, protect industry in South America, and maybe even there's some difficulties coming for farmers in Europe. But that's what it has always been about, trade between Europe and Latin America. So the main thing is what will happen with industries in Brazil, in Argentina, in Uruguay, in Paraguay, when this comes into full in the full extent of this treaty.
Yeah.
If they are to be to die because of the competition, to lose markets, that's what's harmful in a potential way.
Martín, incidentally, the trade pact was signed amid tensions between the US and China. Do you believe that by increasing European demand for MERCOSUR products, MERCOSUR's heavy dependency on the US and Chinese economy would gradually decrease?
That's a difficult question to answer because we still don't know many of the details. But what's probably going to happen is that this is going to take several years to come into full implementation of this accord. So the European Union is a mature market. It's not something that it's growing fast enough so as to equal the growth in Asia, for example. And in that means that Asia is making strides in growth, and it's a much interesting market for merchandise everywhere, especially from Latin America. The USA is also a very mature market already, so it's difficult to understand exactly how much can exports grow from Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, and Paraguay to the European Union that might impact this ascent that China and Asia has already been succeeding in having.
Now, lastly, the trade accord will likely bring growth in demand for Latin American agricultural products. There are fears this would impact the environment on both sides of the Atlantic and lead to more destruction of the Amazon rainforest and also attacks on indigenous peoples. What are your thoughts on this?
That we still don't know what the trade agreement says about this. They are supposed to have some, things that guard indigenous rights, and something about patents that we still don't know how it will be implemented in the MERCOSUR. But I'm not sure this trade agreement has a lot of things that is not just trade. Proper intellectual property, indigenous rights, even these concerns about environmental health and issues that we have yet to know, and it hasn't been disclosed by governments what the agreement says on this. It will be very important, because if not, we could be talking not only about businesses closing in each country, but also about lasting damage to our societies.
Martin, we thank you so much for your input for this important subject.
Thank you, and see you later.
Thank you. We have been speaking with economist Martin Carlos, who joined us from... Welcome back to Telesur English. A state of public emergency has been declared for the South St. Andrew Division of Jamaica. It will give the security forces additional powers of search, arrest, and detention. The division has recorded the highest number of murders since the start of the year, with 94 cases. Both the Prime Minister and the Police Commissioner have expressed serious concern about the high level of violent crimes.
The high level of violent crime that we're experiencing in St. Andrew South Division, particularly the upswing in the past 2 months, is at a scale and of a nature such that it greatly endangers public safety. The division has historically been one of the most violent regions in the country, with over 25 gangs currently engaged in inter- and intra-gang conflicts currently.
So it is our intention to persist, and we will bring our murder rate down to make Jamaicans feel as safe as everyone else in this region. We should not be an outlier in this regard. Jamaica has too much potential, and we cannot allow the criminals, the dons, the gangs who use guns to prevent us from achieving our destiny of being a prosperous nation.
Are seeking to express concern in the French-speaking Caribbean. Moving on to Cuba, the National Assembly is meeting to debate measures to confront the blockade. Our correspondent, Alien Fernandez, has the...
Hola, un gusto acompañarte.
Continuing their discussions here in Havana's Palace of Conventions. Today, they are in a series of working groups dealing with major issues like how to respond to the new sanctions imposed by the United States, which aim to suffocate the Cuban economy. President Miguel Díaz-Canel told them that Cuba should not give up on its call for a strengthening of and said this should not just be a slogan, but a proposal based on the real sectors of the economy. He made it clear that the government would not apply neoliberal policies like the privatization of strategic sectors, because that is precisely what the opponents of Cubans of this year. Imports had also been higher than predicted, mainly because of the arrival of a equipment. These discussions will go on until Sunday, and
thank Alien for that report. The left-wing FMLN party concluded its internal election Sunday in
37th National Ordinary Convention, where the Secretary General of the party, the National Council, the department directors, municipal and delegates officially took up their offices. Members of specialized organizations have also been elected into office by the 600 delegates.
Pas members to serve on the three very organs, which is the Court of Ethics, the Appeals Court, and the Treasurer. Simultaneously, the National Council also held a session and
internal electoral with the holding on elections on the 16th of June. The elections were necessitated by a decision of the Political Commission. This was in response obtained in the mayoral and National Assembly elections in 2018 and the presidential elections held in February 2019.
I believe that the strength that the FMLN has gained in this moment revolutionary and proactive way.
General Oscar Ortiz is promising to unify the party, to improve the electoral performance and to strengthen the Salvadoran left.
A democratic FMLN, a plural FMLN, a revolutionary FMNL, and a socialist FMLN like ours, frame of diversity.
The new leadership elected at the National Convention, which includes the Political Commission and the will have to address various issues such as how to raise the moral and militancy of the party and calls for repairing the elections such as the 2021 National Assembly elections.
Soldiers in the Democratic Republic of Congo fired in the small-scale miners a metallurgical plant on a copper and cobalt concession run by Glencore. The protests come after thousands of illegal miners were evicted from a mine owned by Glencore after 43 people. While the government has promised many have criticized the decision to use soldiers to protect the interests of the mining company. Activists fear that the use of the army to tackle the issue of artists could lead to violent clashes and human rights abuses. Pledged to deploy more than 3,000 troops to beef up He also said efforts are been made between the two ethnic groups. In the past year, people have been killed due to clashes between the Fulani herders and hunters. The International Criminal Court prosecutor has asked judges to approve war crimes and crimes against humanity charges committing civilian abuse. Al-Hassan Ag Abdul Aziz is accused of destroying cultural monuments and enforcing policies that are said to have led to sexual enslavement and girls. It is alleged that the crimes were committed while he acted as the de facto chief of the Islamic police in Timbuktu during the 2014 conflict in northern Mali. But his that he is innocent and his case should be dismissed before set a date for a decision.
Sont assujettis
men and women of the power, invoking and above all imposing their religious views, making great use of brutality and abuses that constitute the crimes against humanity and war crimes according to the Rome Statute.
Regularly known as Festi Congo, is celebrated on the 8th of July every year. A recognized event which preserves the history and culture which comprise the current day Democratic Republic. The colonial area. We'll be back very soon to Telesur. Monsoon trigger landslides in Bangladesh have killed at least one person and left more than 4,500 homeless in Rohingya refugees. in the makeshift camp have been affected by the storms. Over 500,000 Rohingya have fled Myanmar since 2016, primarily to Bangladesh, following violent military crackdowns and persecution against.
Raining for 4 to 5 days. Because of the heavy rain, the mountains have collapsed and the roads have been shattered. People are having trouble walking. It is also difficult to carry goods.
So UNICEF, along with its implementing partners, have already started estimating the damages in all 34 camps, and it has already started establishing the communication mechanisms within the wider humanitarian community to directly respond to the incidents of the flooding and the
peace efforts in Afghanistan have concluded in Doha. Spearheaded by Qatar and Germany, the talks included other issues such as a push for women's rights, but separate talks between members of the United States were also held on how to end the 18-year war. The Taliban demands they withdraw from Afghanistan and not let the nation be used as a base for global attacks. An agreement is expected to this month. Iran has passed the limit established in the 2015 nuclear agreement. Under the deal, any excess uranium would have been exported specifically.
Iran
China has warned the United States and
harassed Chinese